Today, we go to an unlikely destination for an overnight tramp, Auckland. Let's talk about Rangitoto and Motutapu Island. Kia ora and welcome to The Tramping Life, a podcast about hiking in Aotearoa, New Zealand, or as we call it here, tramping. I'm Chauncey, and in this episode, I'll talk about a specific track or hut. I'll give an overview and share my experience, along with the highlights and some practical advice. Auckland's youngest and largest volcano, Rangitoto, erupted about 600 years ago, forming a 23 square kilometre island in the Hauraki Gulf. Despite the volcanic rock landscape, it is home to the largest forest of pōhutukawa trees in the world and over 100 Kiwi baches. These were mainly built in the 1920s and 1930s and controversially started to be removed in the 1970s. An agreement was reached, though, that allowed families to keep their baches and pass them down through generations, but they can't be sold or modernised. They are now some of the best examples of classic Kiwi baches, a far cry from modern luxury baches. 3 of the baches have been saved and restored by the Rangitoto Island Historic Conservation Trust. Batch 78 was built in the 1920s and sleeps 6 people in 2 bedrooms and sits by the water. Batch 114 is nearby in the bush. This was built in the 1930s and sleeps up to 7 people in 2 bedrooms. Batch 52 was built in the 1920s and sleeps up to 7 people in 3 bedrooms. Batches 78 and 114 are in Islington Bay, which is about an hour and a half's walk east from the main Rangitoto wharf, whilst batch 52 is closer, just 35 minutes walk from the wharf. Visit rangitoto.org for more information and how to book the batches. There are a number of trails on Rangitoto, the most popular being up to the 259 metre summit for expansive views across Auckland and the Hauraki Gulf. There are road tracks that cover the western side round to Mackenzie Bay and Beacon Lighthouse and also connect to the summit and Islington Bay. There are worthwhile detours on rough tracks to Boulder Bay and a World War II controlled mine base. Rangitoto is a wonderful place for exploring, as is the neighbouring Motutapu Island. This was populated by Maori before Rangitoto erupted and emerged from the sea next to it. It hosted massive Victorian picnic parties and was a base during World War II with a number of substantial fortifications remaining. Over 500,000 trees have been planted over the past 30 years by the Motutapu Restoration Trust, and as with Rangitoto, extensive pest eradication programs have made both islands sanctuary for native species, including takahe, saddleback, kederu, pīwakawaka fantails, and ruru moorhawks. Twice I've spent the night at batch 78. The faster and easier route to the batch is along Islington Bay Road, but the coastal track is far more interesting, if a little challenging underfoot in places. Batch 78 was built in the 1920s in classic bungalow cottage style with salvaged materials and improvised building techniques. The location is stunning, right by the blue-green ocean surrounded by bush. In summer, it's a wonderful place to go for a swim. The batch facilities are reassuringly basic with limited electricity, although this is enough to run the lights and a low voltage plug, but not a fridge, so cool blocks are provided in the chili bin instead. There's a boat-style chemical toilet and a surprisingly effective camp shower, heated by the sun during the day and hoisted flagpole style to use. One of the attractions of staying overnight on Rangitoto was the opportunity to see sunset from a deserted summit. It was blissfully quiet and a beautiful evening to take in the views of the mainland and islands of the Hauraki Gulf. This is quite a different experience to sharing with a ferry load of people during the day. I saw ruru moorhawk at the summit, enjoyed birdsong on the hour-long walk back to the batch along the summit road. Batch 78 is close to Islington Bay on the eastern side of Rangitoto, close to the causeway to Motutapu Island. The batch was a great base from which to explore Motutapu now that ferries there are infrequent. Motutapu is barren in a different way, thanks to decades of farming and felling of the bush, which combined with drought conditions was quite a contrast to Rangitoto. There were good views back towards the mainland, including Auckland CBD. I walked to Emu Point at the southernmost point of Motutapu, and then up to the trig at the highest point, which is 122 metres above sea level, before heading over to Home Bay on the eastern side. Home Bay has a wonderful dock campsite and the remains of a sizable boiler just offshore. The nearby Rotary Centennial Walkway runs through attractive native bush planted by thousands of volunteers since 1994, which provided a welcome break from the intense sun. Towards the northern end of the island are extensive remains of military camps and barracks, underground ammunition stores, and observation posts built during World War II. Walking back towards the batch, there were some stunning views of Rangitoto and Gardiner's Gap between the islands. Motutapu is also home to one of the largest sanctuary populations of takahe, which were foraging close to the Islington Bay causeway. Some of the highlights of this hike: there's an amazing sense of quiet and solitude so close to New Zealand's largest city, with over 1.5 million people on the mainland, probably only a handful of people at best staying on Rangitoto Island. The historic baches are full of character and a joy to come across around Rangitoto. The 40 or so baches that have been removed are usually represented by an informative plaque. The contrast between Rangitoto with its volcanic terrain and the rolling hills of Motutapu is stark and a treat to explore so close to each other. The native bird life is extensive. It was a welcome surprise to see takahe. Rangitoto is only a 25-minute ferry ride from Auckland, but feels a world away from the city. This is a super accessible adventure that will be great for families and groups, particularly given the size of the baches. To finish with some practical advice, book the batch. They are understandably popular at weekends and over holidays. There are no supplies on the island to bring everything you need with you. Check the ferry time so you don't miss the last ferry back. Otherwise, it is a very expensive water taxi back to Auckland. Both islands are pest-free, so take care with packing to avoid any unwanted stowaways. Finally, Rangitoto is volcanic, so expect to walk on rough and uneven rocks. The fall here can be painful, so do take care. Thank you so much for listening to The Tramping Life. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please follow the podcast in whatever app you use. Tell a friend about it and consider leaving a rating or a review. It really helps more people discover the show. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email at thetrampinglife, one word, @gmail.com.